Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. It's Way T Lightheart from Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health Show. And today, boy, oh boy, this is one of my favorite things. I love cookies. And if you love cookies, you're going to love this because we have none other than Bioptimizer Ambassador Crosby Tailor, who is a modern day Renaissance man, a health and fitness coach, model, sugar-free dessert chef, and founder of Crosby's Baking Co. And the reason he got into this, he was dissatisfied with the way traditional desserts left Crosby feeling. And as a fitness expert, he began to experiment with sugar-free, nutrient-packed recipes and published the results on his Instagram. Well, Crosby efforts have earned him more than 80,000 followers who salivate over his superfood creations. Crosby's delectable treats and expert fitness knowledge has gotten him profiled internationally by publications such as Vogue, Sunday Times, UK, and have been featured on on-air food shows like Food Network's Chopped, as well as ABC's Good Morning America, to name a few. Now, he's going to be launching this whole thing. He's going to tell us all about these cookies, but listen, sugar-free cookies? I mean, if the Cookie Monster was invented today, he would be eating your cookies. Tell us how does a guy that's into bodybuilding, fitness, biohacking, all this stuff end up in the cookie business?
Oh, Wade. Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. That's such a funny story. I think the cookie started, man, I'm kind of lagging. The cookie started a good 6 years ago when I started experimenting as a hobby, making sugar-free desserts. Right around that time, I was having a lot of issues digestive-wise. So one thing that, wasn't really doing well when I ate it was the traditional dessert that's full of all the regular flour and refined sugar and all the different oils that are in it that are just awful. So every time I would have a dessert and be like, oh, I'm just going to treat myself, I would feel horrible afterwards. And I had recognized that there was some gut issues going on at that time that I had to take care of. So one thing I couldn't eat that I kind of put on the bad list for a while was sugar. So I was like a good 3 months in on this journey of eating cleaner. And the one thing that I missed so much was just like having that dessert at the end of the night, for the palate. And I finally just started to create and just kind of figure out how to put some of these recipes together that were gluten-free, sugar-free, grain-free even, and experiment with these things. And it wasn't too long before I started kind of hacking that dessert world and creating all types of creation. So it's been an interesting and fun journey, to say the least. Never thought I was going to be, quote unquote, a baker, which is kind of like a weird thing. Like, I played college football. I'm an athlete at heart. Played high school basketball and football, and then got a scholarship to play football in college. And after that, I did some modeling, and it never was in the radar to be like, oh, I'm going to eventually be making food in some kind of way. But I think as we progress and turn the next page and create a new chapter, we start to develop different creative things in our world. And one thing that kind of fell in my lap was making desserts. So I've just been kind of running with it since.
It's a great story, and I think you bring up a couple of components. I think a lot of people listen to podcasts or they see people with large Instagram followers and they're like, well, I wish it was me. And they kind of have this set mindset of how you're going to get there. But, as an athlete and a model, and now a guy that runs his own cookie company, what I think is really important is how have you been able to maintain kind of a flexibility in your thought process as you move through the stages of life? Because I think a lot of people, and then I was one of those guys that was so fixated on one thing, and I tried to force a lot of things as opposed to the allowance of things. And it seems like you figured that out already. Was there any moments, or were you just kind of that, we just kind of go with it kind of person, and this is what's happening? Or were there some key elements that helped you kind of develop that, I think, a very healthy mindset, especially in a world that's changing so quickly and so fast?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think around that time, I was already learning a lot about Chinese medicine and the Eastern philosophy of food and Eastern medicine. And so I was really into certain herbs and adaptogens and cool things like that. And I was still kind of in that bodybuilding world because I had to kind of use it for modeling. You know, I transitioned from a football body, which we just ate as much as we could.
Right.
At any time of the day. You know, I'm trying to get 6,000 calories a day in just to be able to withstand that 4-hour practice the next day, as well as weights, as well as being able to be in the film room and be able to have the mental, energy for that, to kind of like a completely different way of hacking my body by becoming leaner and creating that more of a V-shaped bodybuilding physique for photos and stuff. And so I kind of already had figured out some things, but more aesthetically. I never really, besides the herbs, I never really thought about it in more of a health and longevity perspective until it hit me in the face and my gut was like, what's going on? You know, I'd eat certain foods and it was awful. And so what happened was, through this, I kind of had some knowledge of, okay, sugar right now is really not working for me. I understand that there's a lot of inflammation that comes from certain grains and gluten, definitely. And I started to do a deep dive into all the toxins that are also in these foods. And I realized that while I started to create these desserts, it was a trial and error experience of, sometimes I would make something and it would taste delicious, but then I would months later find out, oh, I'm using this product and you really can't heat that because now you're going to create free radical damage with the food. So I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to have to transition to something else. And so I was using actually whey protein at times in my desserts. And then I was like, well, this is kind of stupid because when you heat whey, it denatures it and it kind of makes the protein less bioavailable in ways. So I was just like, you know what, let's figure out a different protein. And that's when I came upon collagen. I started using that. And, it's already pre-digested and you can heat it. So I'm like, oh, great. I have like one of my, so it was like a kind of trial and error experience of understanding, okay, how do we put together the perfect cookie when it comes to not only flavor and taste, because I really wanted it to taste like that Mrs. Fields creation. I didn't want it to have that and no shame to some of these like healthier cookies out there, but some of them aren't that good. They just don't taste good.
Yeah, they seem to fall in a category is they're called a healthy cookie, but they're really garbage and taste relatively okay. Or they have this kind of overly chemicalized kind of taste. Or then the third thing is it looks like a cookie, but tastes like a cow patty. So how many experiments did you have to run to get to kind of where you are at in the cookie creation program? Because I think a lot of people just assume that one day you whipped up this recipe and it magically happened. And that's never the case. Like there's like probably a tremendous amount of fails. So what was that experience like? How long did it take you? What were what was some of your favorite fails? I always have the favorite fails. I think a lot of people are so afraid of failing nowadays.
I had a cookie that I was making that was so delicious. I would make kind of like a normal cookie base, but they were like protein cookies at the time. So I'd make the cookie and then I'd let it rest and put it in the fridge. And when it was cool, when it cooled off, I was making these like probiotic colostrum infused icings. And then I'd dress the cookies in certain ways with the icing. And the cookie was absolutely delicious, but it was like, to actually scale this product, it was insane. The cookie itself probably they were probably like $3 a cookie. Like, how was I going to get to the market? So
you could only sell it at Air One for $85 a cookie.
Right. And I probably would get some customers, honestly.
Yeah, you would.
But yeah, like if you had the right tag words on it, anti-aging cookies, they would probably I could probably sell them $15 a pop. But yeah, I had to kind of, from a position, there was never a time when I was like, I really hate this cookie. I always liked the way that they taste. I kind of figured out I had like a weird kind of hit it on like the third try when it came to flavor. And I got really, really lucky when it came to that. And then I just had to kind of tinker with it and like take out a little bit of this and maybe add this instead, and develop something that now, 6 years in the making, not that exact cookie, but just different levels of cookies. I now have something that's like so much more simple than I ever made, but they taste amazing. And they're the classic kind of flavors: chocolate chips, snickerdoodle. I have a white chocolate sugar cookie that I'm working on right now, a sugar cookie with white chocolate chips. That's phenomenal. I've been making ginger snaps, which are really, really delicious. And then I can just see it kind of moving in a direction where I start with chocolate chip and snickerdoodle, get those to scale and market those. And then as I become more popular, create kind of like the next cookie. And eventually I'd love to create baking mixes and brownie mixes and start just the whole package of like going from, okay, I have 1 or 2 desserts to I have a whole company of SKUs that I could market to all different companies and wholesale opportunities, direct to consumer, and create kind of the new dynasty of the way I look at dessert, which I try to look at dessert now as another time in the day that I could fuel myself with the best ingredients for my health. And not just a time where I'm like, oh, I'm just going to throw this one, this is a wash. I'm going to eat a terrible for me chocolate chip cookie or kill this whole thing of ice cream and then just try to figure it out the next day. To me, it's like, why not have your cake and eat it too? Eat something that tastes like the real deal, but also you get all the nutrient dense energy that you would need from even a normal meal. Like I can compare the macros of some of my cookies, eating like 3 cookies, to having like a small meal, calorie wise. And then when it comes to the carbs, fats, proteins, and if you really want to get down to it, the ingredients that are in it can sometimes be even better than a lot of the normal meals out there that we don't even really know a lot of the time that we're eating so clean, but the restaurant might be using canola oil, or we're eating, think we're getting good protein and it's, corn-fed beef. And there's just so many different avenues that I think we can look at food and really try to figure out the best possible scenario for us to get the best nutrients. And I just wanted my desserts to kind of fall into that same guideline.
You bring up a couple things that I think are very striking and similar in some of the developments that we did at Bioptimizers. And I remember when I started that journey, most of the supplements that were available didn't really work. They were kind of hopes in a bottle or obtuse extractions. And
Yeah,
I think there's a conceptual idea in the dessert world that you can't have something that's good for you because everything to a certain point wasn't good. And I felt the same thing in the supplementers. Or well, supplements don't work and stuff. I'm like, yeah, but you can make supplements that work. It's if you want to put the time, the effort, the energy. And there's one thing I thought was really interesting, where you thought you start off here and then you kind of reduce and kind of eliminate all the fluff, if you will. And I think it was Leonardo da Vinci said that perfection is when there's nothing left to take away, but just the absolute. And I love this concept that you're sharing with people of actually looking at the macros as a cookie, as a meal, as taking this or taking it in a way and looking at it from, hey, we can make something that tastes good and is good for you. It feels like you're eating something bad, but it's not. I mean, that's a renaissance. To me, that's what Renaissance ideas is let's take something that we know, love, and want that's not so good for us and find a healthy way to do it. And we've done that at Bioptimizers. Was that something that just came to you one day? How often do you use these cookies? Is it something you say like, look, I've got this cookie thing going on. I got the sugar thing going. I got this diet. I'm going to solve this problem because I want my cookies. Was that what it was? Or what, like how did you kind of get to that mindset? I think this is so key because, you know, you're obviously building this expanding business and you're a very creative
Yeah.
thinker, and, you know, it's an invention mindset, which is great.
Yeah. I think it just kind of started as a hobby of like having that. It wasn't even like a every night kind of thing that I wanted to eat this. But it was, hey, let me get in the kitchen and figure out how to make a healthy dessert. And then as I started making them, it was super cool. I felt like that became my creative outlet to get in the kitchen, and it was like art to me. You know, I'd throw together certain ingredients to make different flavors, and I was always excited about. I'd wake up and be like, "Oh, it'd be really cool to make like a double chocolate fudge this with this, and have like a frosting, or you know, make an ice cream and do like a chocolate sauce on top of it." I was always thinking of like cool ways. And I think part of it too was like, I loved throwing these recipes on Instagram and getting the like, oh my God, I can have that. Like, oh, you saved I haven't had ice cream in this long, or I haven't had a cookie in this long. Like, you're telling me I can eat this and it's going to be okay for me. Like that kind of like fired me up, that I had like a customer base out there that was really excited about alternative ways of making these desserts. And so it just became kind of like a exciting new endeavor for me. And it was never about me personally, more so once I knew that I can indulge in this and with my gut issues, I was like, wow, this could be really something big for a lot of people that are struggling to find a dessert alternative, that are, you know, have gut issues like me, or trying to lose weight, or are pre-diabetic or diabetic, or have digestive issues, or are just like really, really jacked or really, really lean, and they want to like keep that physique and still eat cookies. Like, I was like, wow, there's like such a massive market for this. And it turned from a hobby to me making, oh, well, how about instead of making 12 that I'm going to eat in the next couple days, I'll quadruple the batch and then start hitting up some of my friends. Hey, you want to try these cookies? And it turned into, you know, at that time, Instagram was like just kind of like hitting, and I didn't have that many followers, but I had like my close friends and some people on there, and I every once in a while would post a dessert and people were like, wow, like, what is that? How can I get that? And so I started just randomly making for just my close friends in LA, and I would make a dozen cookies. Even back then I was selling a dozen cookies for like $40, and people weren't blinking because people understand the value of something like that. You know, I think that, I mean, I just shipped a couple dozen cookies to a friend in Connecticut, and they paid for like 2-day shipping, which was insane. The amount of that, but the value for that person and his girlfriend to have those cookies for like a Valentine's Day weekend, knowing that they're eating the best ingredients and still being able to indulge, is worth it for somebody that, you know, has the income for that kind of thing. So I feel like it just turned into, wow, this is something that I really am passionate about, that can also be a business, that can also be a business endeavor that I could go after and help a lot of people, satisfy a lot of people, you know, create an opportunity for myself. And that's kind of how it's been since.
Beautiful. I find that when you kind of get past one's own self and see the bigger picture, there's a driving factor that seems to activate creativity more and so than, you know, we figure something out for ourselves, but what drives it beyond that seems to be the greater good or the greater family. And I've noticed so many inventors and business people and stuff. Now, we're going to switch gears a little bit because, you know, you're obviously a super fit guy and you know, good looking guy. You got all these Instagram followers like, oh my God, you're talking to Crosby, blah, blah, blah. What do you do for a fitness routine? How do you stay in shape through this process of, you know, because creating a company and running a company and doing an Instagram, that's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on. So how do you manage that, that people might not know of your day-to-day life? What's your day-to-day life like?
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip: supercharge your protein shake. Everyone knows protein shakes are a great way to sneak in extra protein, build more muscle, even replace meals and burn more fat. The problem is the highest quality protein typically absorbs at around 40%. One way to fix this and dramatically increase how quickly and effective your protein shake digests is to add 2 to 3 capsules of masszymes into your shake. One research study showed that pre-digested protein during a meal increased muscle growth significantly. To take advantage of this, just blend the open capsules into your shake, and within 15 minutes or less, the enzymes will have begun to break down the protein into amino acids. This can make your shakes at least 2 to 3 times more potent. Some people do this and sip on their shake while lifting to provide their muscles with a steady stream of amino acids during their workout. To save 10% on masszymes, use the code SHAKE10, that's SHAKE10, at masszymes.com. That's SHAKE10 at masszymes.com.
I get up early. I'm up early. I'm up at 5 o'clock, 5:30, and I almost see it as like 2 days. I was talking to, first time I've ever been on Clubhouse. Have you heard of this Clubhouse thing?
Yeah, it seems to be catching trend right now, right?
Yeah, it was cool. I was on there with my buddy Max Lugaver and Kelly Levesque and a couple other awesome people in the food world, and we were giving talks about some of our life hacks and fitness hacks and that kind of stuff. And that's kind of how I like to talk about it. It's like I wake up so early that I feel like I have 2 days. I feel like I have 5:30 to like lunch, and then I have everything after lunch. And that 5:30 to 9:30 before I normally probably get a workout in, if I'm training that day, it's probably around 9:30, 10. And people are like, well, what are you doing for 4.5 hours before you train? Why you wake up so early? It's like, I have a regimen in the morning that has kept me feeling the best I've ever felt in my life in the last couple of years. And it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel good. I wake up, I have similar things every morning. I probably change up certain things that I put in like a pre-workout drink, but for the most part, having a routine and creating consistency in your life is such a takeaway. And that was a big takeaway for me with some of my mentors when I was trying to figure out my stuff was, what am I doing that is stopping me from getting to this next level that I want to get to? And one thing for me is I'm an Aries, like type A personality. I kind of need that structure and routine I really thrive in that kind of environment. And there was a time when I was just kind of like, would wake up and just kind of, I'll do this. And, maybe I'll go here today. And there wasn't really like a thing that I did. And now that I have like a morning routine and kind of a nighttime routine, everything else in between is way more spontaneous. But that morning routine and nighttime routine puts my body in this place where it's like, our bodies love habit, right? They love to kind of like know what might be happening at that 5 o'clock in the morning when it comes to even like our functions of our body, like bowel movements and all of that stuff in the morning. Like, my body is on point about all that stuff. It knows when things are going to happen. And so that consistency really has, over time, I never said I'm going to gain 8 pounds of muscle and burn some fat off in the next 6 weeks. I just live my life consistently in a very like, kind of predominantly like very clean way. I don't really dabble into toxic things, or I don't drink alcohol. Like, every once in a while I might. I stay away from vegetable oils, and I try to get an adequate amount of protein in my diet daily. I have transitioned into a place where I have a lot more metabolic flexibility now. Whereas I tried the keto, I tried certain things that like very low carb and keto. I tried all awesome at first. And then by like month 4, I'm like dragging in some kind of way. So now I feel like for me, it's been this metabolic flexibility of understanding, hey, carbs and sugars are energy to me. I'm going to use them at the right times, pre and post workout. I'm not going to like eat like a bunch of carbs right before I go to bed. I'm going to have them around my training time. I love to wake up to more of like a protein fat kind of idea in the morning. Bulletproof coffee, I still drink. I love it. And then when it comes to actually absorbing and being able to utilize the energy, like ever since I met you guys and started using all the Bioptimizer stuff when it comes to Masszymes, HCl, P3OM, even the Capex, and every once in a while when I go eat at this Lebanese place, they have these like little vermicelli, like glutinous noodles in the rice. I'll take the gluten guardian. And I think I always underestimated the idea of like enzymes and all the digestive stuff until the last like 5 years. And it's like, it's night and day. So between the way that I supplement, how I sleep, getting up early and actually having that extra day that I feel like I have to get things done, I put a lot of work into myself at those early hours. I get up, I make sure I'm doing all the mental stuff on my computer, returning all the emails, getting all my work done for a couple hours, drinking my coffee, big glass of water, vitamin C, glutathione, like all the good stuff in the morning. And then I'll make like the most powerful pre-workout drink that's got every adaptogen you could think of, from cordyceps to schizandra to astragalus, ashwagandha, and add my essential amino acids, creatine, electrolytes, chlorophyll. It's kind of one of those things where every time I put one of those things in my body, it's like ching, ching, ching. Like I feel this, I'm giving so much to this vessel that the only thing that's going to happen from that, the consequence is going to be like this awesome output all the time. I'm going to feel great. I'm going to be able to, go to the gym and lift as hard as I want, or go off for a sprint, or feel like I'm 20 something years old at 36, when I don't think I felt this good when I was 26. So learning how to kind of tap into you personally, understanding what foods, herbs, supplements, modalities, exercises. I mean, we're all so different. Like some people might do really well with high intensity interval training, and some people might need to do something a little bit more low impact. Some people might love yoga and their bodies might love that. So just kind of over the years, understanding my body, what really makes it thrive, and then bringing in those things that are like 100% thrive, kind of experimenting with everything else, and then getting rid of everything that makes me feel terrible. And like over time, I'm a very sensitive person. Like I can kind of feel things right away. And I think that also comes with the fact that I've been working on myself for so long that now I'm just like such an open vessel. As soon as I put something in my body, 20 minutes later, I'm like, oh, I love that. Or probably not going to use that again,
Yes, so common amongst people who've been spending a lot of time. I think a lot of people underestimate our intuitive and observational gifts as humans to actually gauge. And when you're really, really messed up, you just want to get out of pain or out of suffering. And once you get past that, there's this stage like you talked about where it's kind of like, oh, this thing makes me feel good, this thing. And then you get to kind of a very sophisticated stage where you're kind of refining all of these. You're staying open, but you've got your routines. And I can't tell you how many high performers I know have relatively rigid and quote unquote boring schedules. even though we have this kind of idea, this kind of like razzle dazzle, amazing Instagram cool lifestyle, when in fact they're getting up. I was at a fellow's house the other day. He gets up at 4 a.m. He's a well-known internet celebrity and has a massive following. And he goes surfing every morning with another friend of mine. And we have this Legends pool league that we play in, and we've got jerseys, and it's gone ridiculous, you know. So it's a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, we've created a whole league. But so I was down in Orange County with them. And we went over to his house. It was about 5:30 a.m. It was still dark. And we had to wait outside by his pool thing. He got done around just after 6. And when this person came out, I said, what time do you get up? He's like, 4 a.m. And I'm like, what do you mean? I said, every day? He goes, yeah, every day I got to get up at 4 a.m. before everybody's up and has got a family, all that sort. He goes, and I'm cranking with my team till like 6:30, maybe 7, like, you know, to 7. And then the waves are coming in, and him and his friend, one of my buddies, he goes, and then literally he comes out of the house like he's fired out of a shotgun cannon. And I was keeping up to him as we ran down to the beach, and he's literally running down to the beach. Like, he's so jacked up. And he says, and then I go surf like a maniac until I just like totally trash myself. He goes, and if I don't do that, I'm a psychopath. So he's like, I have to get this. Now I have another friend who has a routine, who gets up later, but likes to create late at night. And so I think everybody has their kind of sweet spot, and, you know, you can go to chronotypes and how much sleep you need, or if you're a wolf versus a lion and a bear and all that sort of stuff. It's really, really fascinating. How important?
I think I'm the lion then, right?
Yeah, we're lions, and most of my team are bears, which is interesting. So I'm like the early guy, but most of my team lives on either the Eastern Seaboard or in Europe or whatever. So I'm getting up early for me, and the sweet spot of their day, they're like kind of getting into it. I'm like, yay, let's go. You know, it's like, you know, so it's kind of funny how that works out for everybody. You mentioned about, and thank you for talking about the digestive stuff. I appreciate that. It's a big passion of ours, and you know how many people are really struggling out there and with digestion, because, you know, our ability to absorb and utilize our food is so compromised. What would you say you think the future is, particularly in the food related business? Because you're in that industry, you're in creating these kind of healthy options of dessert, sugar-free things that are focused on digestibility and things like that. What's your mood or thought or kind of concepts for that industry as a whole?
Hope. I'm just hoping things are going to work out. I see a lot of stuff in the news about certain takeovers when it comes to farmland, and we might be having issues with really having the space to create real food. Coming up pretty soon. So I think the transition really is learning how to create a little bit more sustainability within yourself, of maybe understanding like gardening and these types of things too. Like I've always said, I mean, the last like year, I keep joking that I want to get goats and chickens and get some land and have a garden and start to, you know, create my own energy source of where I'm getting my food, because it's just getting kind of crazy. I really still obviously have a lot of passion when it comes to getting these desserts to the mass market. But when it comes to just the normal run-of-the-mill food, I'm a big believer in like grass-fed beef. I think that land animals are probably, when you're talking about like a Belcampo farm or some of these places that are getting like New Zealand grass-fed this or bison or Belcampo's farm when it comes to the lamb and the cows that they have might be the least toxic food on the planet, because everything else is just getting sprayed and monocropped and GMOs, and there's just so much. Our world is getting so toxic, and so I think the future of food is heading in direction of understanding not only macronutrients and, okay, yeah, I need proteins and fats and fiber and carbohydrates and the kind of ratios that really work for my body, but also understanding where all these mycotoxins are coming from and knowing that, hey, doing your research, realizing that like there's a good 10, 12 heavily glyphosated foods out there that are like full of Roundup and pesticides and stuff that are, if you don't get them organic, there's a chance that might end up in your body. And that glyphosate's probably one of the main reasons we all have gut issues. And the main reason why, your company is so awesome for people is it helps to get some of that stuff out of the body. So that's why it's like, I'm hopeful that the food industry can pivot and really stay in the direction of putting putting the power in the hands of the farmer, understanding that we have to use regenerative agriculture and ways to like regenerate the soil so that we can actually get minerals from our food. These are like scary things that a lot of people I don't think about, but I kind of am a little OCD about what I put in my body. So like I do a lot of research and I understand, hey, there's a lot of toxins in our food. And for me, it's a bigger deal to understand what to stay away from these days to then, or rather than like understanding, oh, okay, yeah, protein gives me muscle. Like, let's just eat whatever protein. I'm just going to get protein. Like people talk about all the time. Like, I'm going to go eat this cereal because it has protein in it. Well, does it really have protein that you're actually going to ever use in a cereal?
Yeah, great question. That's a great one.
Like, is it actually bioavailable? Are you going to actually even break that down into absorbable amino acids? Like, that's why I love essential amino acids, because I'm getting directly those proteins. That's why I love Masszymes, because when I have a steak or grass-fed beef or these like proteins that I want to get those amino acids from, I'm going to be able to break them down with the digestive enzyme to actually absorb way more percentage than the average human, who's probably only absorbing 30% of that meat. So I forgot who said it, but there's that quote, it's not what you eat but what you can actually digest and absorb.
That was me.
Was that you?
That's great. Tell us a little bit. I know our listeners I know I am. I'm thinking about what's the latest Crosby cookie conversation. Where do people find out about your company? How do they get access to your cookies? What do you got coming, or what do you got cooking? What do you got coming next for where people want to find out about and follow you on Instagram and learn about these options that you have, because it's you've got obviously a lot of publicity about it. It's a really good trend that you're on. You're doing a great thing for people who would like to have their cake and eat it too, so to speak. They want to have their dessert, but they don't want to disrupt their health program. And you're a testament to that. So where do people reach you?
Well, my Instagram is where I'm doing most of my business right now, just because I'm working on the website while I'm working on the launch for the actual desserts to start getting into these stores locally in LA at first, direct to consumer shipping, as well as some other stores that have had interest that I'll be hopefully working with. But right now, my Instagram at Crosby Tailor, Tailor, like the pants Taylor, is where you can find some of my tips and ideas when it comes to gut health and workouts and fitness, as well as recipes that I'm creating that aren't just the cookies. Because the cookies, sorry to say, you're not going to find a cookie recipe, as that's my baby, and I'm going to actually
Right, of course.
so nobody gets the IP to that. But I am throwing up other stuff like cupcakes and ice creams and breads. I make an unbelievable banana bread. Might be one of my favorite things, and I have put out that recipe, so you can actually go to my Instagram and get that and make that today if you have the ingredients at home. But yeah, that's the Instagram. I kind of run everything through there, and then Crosby's Baking Co. is my company. I'll be launching that website and everything to do with that business, hopefully as early as the beginning of March. I was ambitiously trying to do something for Valentine's Day, but man, I didn't realize how long it was going to take to source some of these ingredients that I still need to get when it comes to wholesale. And yeah, everything's in place. Like, I actually worked with a co-packer already who's awesome. We did like a 400 cookie run in like 2 hours. So I was like, wow, we could probably bust out like 1,500, 1,800 cookies in a day's work. And I'll probably start rolling that out a couple times a week and getting them out to the Air Ones and Tokayas and hopefully Alfred's and Body Energy Clubs and all the cool places in LA, and then move into the also the direct to consumer space, where I would love to sell that by a dozen. So somebody could just order a dozen cookies, get them shipped to Texas, or I just actually shipped, like I said, to somebody in Connecticut. Hopefully I will dial in the shipping when it comes to shipping to the East Coast, because obviously a lot more expensive for me to do by myself than once I had like an actual drop ship kind of situation going on. So once I get all that flowing, like I said, as early as beginning of March, should be able to start looking for these cookies to hit the stores. Yeah, Crosby's Baking Co. Everything's sugar, gluten, and grain free. I don't even use nuts either. So if you're somebody that has allergens to nuts, or you fall into more of a autoimmune protocol type diet, these are nut free. I'm not a huge fan of almond flour, and I know that's a big baking flour these days for the keto community. I would rather see myself get some more digestible carbohydrates that my body can actually use and not affect my gut, like cassava flour. And I use a blend of cassava and coconut flour. Both can be heated. Saturated fat from coconut flour is a heat stable fat. So unlike almond flour, which is an omega-6 fat that can, go rancid when cooked. So I really wanted to look into that science and go, okay, if I'm going to feed a cookie to the world, how would I want it to be for myself, right? Like, how am I going to feel if I eat this cookie? I don't want to just make a keto cookie that I could profit off of and fall into that marketing of keto. I'd rather make something that I know feels good for me and feels good for my customer base that I'm getting this out to on a regular basis, and friends and family, and then, be able to launch something that I feel really good about, that I feel authentically represents myself. So that's kind of what I'll be coming to the world with. Yeah. And I love the idea of like the cookie still having some of those kind of like great grandmother aspects to it, when we still used grass-fed butter and we still used eggs, and we weren't replacing it with these weird oils like all the vegetable and seed oils that are out there that are predominantly, if you go to any non-Air One or Whole Foods and you go to any other grocery store around the world, there's a very good chance any cookie that you pick up is going to have either canola, safflower, soybean oil, one of those vegetable or seed oils. And people don't realize that I believe is the epidemic right now of all of our health problems. Not necessarily sugar. It's the vegetable and seed oils, in my opinion. Somebody could prove me wrong, but that's just kind of what I think at this point.
Some great integrations. I believe that you're on to something here. As there's always an evolution in dietary trends, whether it's carbs and fats or these sort of things, and you're on the bleeding edge. And we wish you the best of success in the cookie program, because I love a good cookie. So for all our listeners out there, make sure that you check out Crosby's Baking Co. and Crosby Tailor on Instagram. He's got a great following, got some cool recipes. I can't wait to try that banana bread. I have a deep banana bread story, but I'm going to share that another time.
Dude, I'll get you banana bread as soon as possible. I know where you live.
Right on, brother. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast with Way T Lightheart at Bioptimizers. Looking forward to seeing you next time. See ya.
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip. Turn cultured foods into superfoods. Raw fermented foods like sauerkraut and low sugar live yogurt can be good for you, but rarely have enough of the right probiotic strains for therapeutic benefit. So here's a way that you can turn them into superfoods. What I do is I get some raw sauerkraut or a healthy yogurt. Ideally, it's grass-fed or coconut-based, and you can empty 3 caps of P3OM into a container and mix it up thoroughly. Leave it at room temperature for a couple of hours before putting it back into the fridge. And what's going to happen is these probiotic levels will be multiplied. In fact, it doubles every 20 minutes. And then what you're going to get is you're going to have a food with strong proteolytic activity. To learn more about P3OM and why its patented strains make it the strongest probiotic available, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.